Alright, guys, it's Chatterbox Reviews coming at you guys with Ozark Season 1, Episode 5 review. So, this episode was pretty good. I kind of found it to be, kind of all over the place, to be honest. But it was still such a good episode. But we got so many different storylines here of stuff happening. With Jonah, with Charlotte, with the new Jacob Snell character, and just everything is kind of happening in this episode. It was kind of ran the whole Russ Langmore thing too. So it was just a lot of stuff they gave to us in this episode. This is definitely the most dynamic episode they've had so far. In the past couple episodes, they kind of focused on the Langmores sort of thing. But anyways, so this is quite an episode. Like I said, it was good though. I enjoyed it still. I just thought that I think they maybe could have even this episode really could have been split into two episodes with the amount of stuff we got. May have gotten a little bit, a few more answers that way. Could be. But yeah, so I also wanted to just mention that I'm trying out a new way to record these reviews as well, because I have been noticing that in the past, the video is lagging a little bit when I upload it, but when I watch it beforehand, it's not lagging. So I'm not sure if that's like YouTube with the file or whatever. I'm not sure what's going on, but I'm trying a new way. Better quality it should be. It should be 1080p 60, I think. So anyways, if it's not, then I'm aiming for that. But we will see. We'll see. But anyways, just thought I'd mention that so you guys know. And yeah, I hated that. I hate that laggy footage because you can hear the audio perfectly fine. Excuse me, but the actual video footage is behind, stuff like that. It's just frustrating. But anyways, yeah. So this one starts off with a scene of the young boy robbing, or not a young boy really, more like a maybe 18 to 20-year-old who robs that convenience store. And now this kind of starts off, we have no idea what's going on, right? Because we haven't met any of these characters that are in this convenience store. We definitely haven't met the 18-year-old or the guy. So we're kind of wondering what's happening here. And so he shoots the man who comes in the convenience store because he's saying put your anger here or something like that, and he kind of wants to be shot, and he's trying to save the other people in the store. And basically it comes around and ends up being the pastor who it ends up being a big part in this episode. And we find out he survived the gunshot. So obviously it's kind of a miracle that he did survive the gunshot, right? Because I thought at the time he was just dead, right? Because it was, right in the heart area. So definitely a miracle that he survived it. And, obviously that's maybe why he's a pastor now. So yeah, it was kind of an interesting scene. I mean, I felt like it didn't need to be there. It was a really interesting introduction to the pastor. But we've met other characters so far who have been more interesting, and we haven't had any backstory on them. So I just kind of was wondering why, but it was well done. So then Wendy finds Bobby Dean's dead body there at the edge of the dock. And it was kind of funny. She's, poking it with her oar or whatever from the kayak there. And they're basically forced to call the police. They didn't want to, but, people are looking on and see the dead body. So they, ask if they're calling the police. And, of course, Marty calls them. Then the sheriff tells Marty that he wants this bill of sale to prove that Marty, had nothing to do with it, that he didn't actually kill Bobby, and that he paid Bobby for his club, and that was it. Nothing else happened. So definitely interesting, and I don't blame the sheriff at all for thinking it was him, right? Because body's on his dock and whatever. But later on we kind of, even in that situation we kind of know who did it. But then we kind of get reaffirmed that information in the next scene when Jacob Snell walks out in front of Marty on the road. Marty's driving along and he just walks out, which is really creepy, but really, just kind of shows us what his character really is. And basically, Jacob offers Marty to continue the same deal he had with Bobby. Now he doesn't know Marty. He doesn't know his whole background, who he's working for, etc. So obviously, he's probably just thinking he's another guy who just bought a nightclub or a strip club or whatever. So yeah, it's pretty interesting. And basically, Marty tells him that his employer wouldn't allow it, and that he couldn't take the deal. And it's kind of funny here because Marty is working for this cartel, right? This huge drug cartel, Mexican drug cartel, right? And Jacob Snell is just, some guy who we do learn later has a lot of power in the Ozarks, the town there, but not necessarily, even in the same ballpark as the cartel, right? I mean, he doesn't know that, of course. He doesn't know that the cartel is his employer. So it's definitely kind of ironic here to see, that Jacob Snell is kind of going up against Dell in this situation. And they kind of both want the same thing. They both want Marty to launder money through the club. So it'll be definitely interesting to see where that goes, and see if Jacob eventually finds out, right? So then, we kind of get the idea that everyone thinks Marty killed Bobby Dean. When he walks into the strip club, everyone is kind of looking at him strange, and everyone in the town sort of thinks he did it. And Marty, at this point, asks Ruth to be in charge of the club when he goes to the Blue Cat just for the weekend for July 4th, which is a pretty big responsibility. Shows he has a lot of trust in Ruth, that she can run the club now. And when he goes to the Blue Cat to help out Rachel, which is the woman's name who owns the lodge. So then, an interesting scene here, for sure. Jonah and Buddy, Buddy Diker there, who lives in a basement, they go shooting out in the forest, and they're kind of shooting watermelons, and Buddy teaches them how to shoot the gun, and all that. And I just thought it was really ironic and kind of hilarious because this whole scene happens right after last episode of them talking about him being a school shooter and him using guns and stuff. So it was pretty funny and kind of ironic here because, obviously Jonah isn't that, right? Because we learned that last episode. But it's just funny how he ends up picking up a gun and starting to learn how to shoot a gun the next episode. So kind of funny. Not sure maybe if they did that purposely. They probably did. But just kind of funny for me at least. Just the irony there. So yeah, but that kind of lasted a little too long in my opinion. I think that scene kind of went on forever, with Buddy, kind of talking really slowly and stuff. But I don't know, in my opinion, it wasn't the best, but it was definitely, it had to be there. But I just think they could have shortened it down a little bit. So then Charlotte and Wyatt apologize to each other there at the Blue Cat Lodge, and they kind of share a moment a little bit actually. And make some jokes, maybe even flirting with each other. So obviously, Charlotte, punched him the last episode there, a really good punch, and Wyatt threw her off the boat. So, two things happen, they're kind of both equally guilty, and so, they kind of make up, which is good to see, but also I'm kind of worried, that Charlotte's getting involved with the Wyatt, the Langmores there, and bad things are just bound to happen with that. So we'll see where that goes. And then later on, Wyatt and her spend time with each other at the Langmores' house, or their trailer, I guess. And he comes to pick her up, and Wendy's definitely worried, and I don't blame her at all. I think she has a right to be worried with Charlotte going to the Langmores. Definitely. Their sketchy family and stuff. But she also feels bad that, she whipped the possum up at Wyatt because she thought they were the ones that were putting the animals there back in episode 3, I think. So, obviously, she kind of has to let her go because, she feels bad herself. So then Marty asks Rachel about the name Snell. And this is kind of where we learn about the Snells. She tells him, they're very mysterious. She says her line, nobody knows what happens up on that farm. So they own this big farm with a lot of land. and the kind of thing is here is that they kind of run the town. And as we learn later on, is that he kind of controls the sheriff too. So very interesting. And I think this was a good way to kind of for Marty to learn what they were all about and what kind of power they had as well. I think it's better than him just looking up or maybe talking to him again or something like that. I think this is a cool way to involve Rachel, and she actually has a lot of screen time. I mean, right now she's kind of a recurring character, but she has a lot of screen time right now, and the whole Blue Cat storyline has really taken off. So, and that's a great, she's played by a great actor as well. But yeah, I really like the character so far. It's a lot of humor to it, and it's pretty dynamic. So I like it. Then we get kind of a weird thing here. Now I kind of felt like this didn't need to be in the episode. I just felt like it's unneeded. I mean, it's the part where Josh Silverberg, which is Gary's son, the one who was thrown off the 80th floor building there by Dell and his guys, and killed. But I mean, and Wendy's lover. But I mean, I don't see where this is relevant anymore. I mean, this happened episode 1. I feel like if they were gonna do this, they should have done this episode 2 or 3, right when they moved in, and the guy kind of found them. I don't know. I just felt like this was unnecessary. It didn't really lead to anything because he comes to the house, talks to her. He's skeptical about his father's death, and then like he's talking to the cops. We learn about it, and he's telling them that it definitely wasn't a suicide, but they're obviously not believing him. So it could be bad for Marty and Wendy, but I don't see it being that, right? It would be different if he was talking to the cops and he had proof that it wasn't a suicide or something like that. Then it would get me worried, and then yes, definitely be necessary for the story. But I just did not see this being necessary in the story at all. The only thing I could think of is maybe that afterwards, when Marty asks Wendy about, did you really love him, and Wendy says no, I think it's more of that, getting Wendy to think about that question as well, and kind of, think about where she stands right now with Marty. So that could be it, to be honest, as well. But otherwise, I don't really see a point in it. So I was kind of disappointed with that. But yeah. So Marty then and Wendy deliver the bill of sale to the sheriff's office there, to make sure that Marty wasn't involved with the murder. So then after he gives the bill of sale to the sheriff, proving that, the sheriff tells them that they're ruling Bobby's death as an overdose. But as we know, it obviously wasn't an overdose, although it's made to look like one. Because he foamed at the mouth, and it was it looked like an overdose when he died, actually. So, but obviously we know that Jacob was behind it, and that his body was dumped at the end of the dock. So obviously, really something sketchy is going on here, and it kind of tells us that the Snells kind of control the whole town, like I've been saying, and including the sheriff. Who's supposed to be, the big guy here running the town. So definitely interesting. Shows us the power that Jacob and the rest of his, kind of family have there, the Snells. So, and I think it's definitely going to come in later on in this season. I think it's going to be a big storyline here about the Snells, and I think I don't think this is the last time that he's seen Marty, and that he's going to, try to convince him to take the deal. So that is what it is for now, and we'll definitely see. But I'm really interested in the Jacob Snell character, to be honest. I mean, he's, it's a really interesting character because he's, kind of like a cowboy looking guy, but as we find out, he's kind of, peddling drugs in the Ozarks, and he just doesn't look like the classic, drug ring leader, right? I mean, he just looks like a normal guy there living in the Ozarks, and he kind of blends in. So it's interesting to see these characters, and just great acting, obviously by Peter Mullen, who plays Jacob Snell. And yeah, so I think he was really meant for that role. I think he's playing it great with the accent and everything. So yeah, I'm really impressed by that character, and I'm excited to see what's in store for him later on in the season here. So Russ Langmore takes the FBI agent. I found out his name, Roy Petty. Now, honestly, I searched this one up. I don't think it's been mentioned yet. But he takes him out fishing. And kind of afterwards, Roy makes a move on him and kisses him in the truck, which is really weird to me because, I mean, where is that going, really? Because, he's an FBI agent. In my opinion, I thought, he's just trying to play Russ. He's gonna get close to him, kind of get close to Langmore's, and then kind of get them to flip on Marty. That was kind of my thing on here. But then he kind of makes a move on him and kisses him, and I don't really understand what that was for. We see later on in the hotel that he has this hair on the little like spinning machine there, and he's kind of doing something with it. Now I'm not sure if maybe that is actually Russ's facial hair, maybe, or like some of his beard that he got when he made a move on him and tried to kiss him. Maybe that's why he did it. But otherwise, I don't even know about that. I'm not sure if that was Russ's or not. They didn't really make it obvious to us to kind of find out. But it's just, this character is a lot of weird things about him. And this, making a move on Russ is definitely one of them. But, really weird. But then Russ is a little hesitant at first, kind of lets it happen for a few seconds, but then, punches him, calls him a faggot, and, tells him to get out of his truck, and, he kind of leaves him there and drives home. So, that little hesitation, though, kind of led us to believe that maybe, Russ is, kind of maybe into it or not. I'm not sure, but obviously we find out later in the episode. So, yeah, interesting scene. So then Wendy and Marty visit the pastor, who was from the intro scene, and they offer to build him a church in order to launder the money through the construction cost. And they got this idea because, they thought IRS, something they would overlook would be, religious funds and stuff of the sort, building a church. That would be a thing that the IRS would probably overlook just because of the, religion part of it. So definitely smart, but really, really, sneaky and definitely, crossing the line, I'd say, using a good pastor. I mean, he's a good guy. He's, all above board, and kind of using him for this. So it's kind of, really, really sketchy, really, too far. But that's just the way Marty has to live right now to keep him and his family alive with Dell. So he has to launder this money somehow, and they're basically going to do it through the construction costs of this church. So an interesting scene. I like the way that the pastor didn't agree right away. I mean, he kind of questioned them for owning the strip club, and that's obviously not what a religious family would do. So yeah, it was definitely interesting, and then eventually, of course, he does accept. That we find out later. So then this is where this comes back, where Russ knocks on Roy's hotel room or door, and starts making out with them. And Roy says you're drunk or whatever like that. And he says so, whatever. And so Roy, the FBI agent, then closes the door and they have sex. It's kind of inferred there. Obviously we don't see anything, but that's what happens. So then Russ tells them not to tell anyone the next morning. Kind of funny. Really weird, though, honestly, because I did not think Russ was into that. I thought, he'd just be like a kind of a stereotypical, redneck guy in the Ozarks, and he was totally against gays and stuff like that. But then, he just goes over and does this with the guy. So really kind of a weird storyline. I didn't really I don't think this was needed at all. This, again, with Jacob, I mean, where does this lead from? Or not Jacob, the Silverberg guy who comes to the house, but Josh. But where does this come in? Like, why is this important for us to see? I feel like this kind of just diminished the Russ character more than it already was, really, for me. So, I don't know. It was kind of just, because, he's really hypocritical. because he's saying calling him a faggot before, and then he ends up coming over and having sex with him. So I don't know. It's like, where do you really stand, sort of thing, and the character is really on the rocks right now. We don't know what kind of guy he is anymore. So I don't know. It was kind of a funny scene, but that's about it for me. That's all it was, really. But anyways, I feel like we're gonna definitely see more of that, and I feel like Roy, this is all part of his plan, and he's still playing him. I don't think it's a serious relationship or anything. But yeah, so then Ruth is put in charge of the club, permanently. She becomes the manager, not just for the July 4th. Marty's going to pay her $1,000 a month, or a week, I think he said, which, yeah, $1,000 a month, if we're working full-time, is not that much, but, yeah, per week. So then she later on, after that, follows Marty to the storage unit that he bought, where he's storing all this cash, and sees him handling the cash and putting all the bills back. So that's interesting. Kind of shows that she doesn't really trust Marty, or that she's kind of, back in episode 3, she said she's going to learn from him and then kill him. So maybe that's still what she's thinking. That's sort of her mindset right now, that she's going to kill him. And maybe tracking him back to the storage unit is going to help her do that, help her learn more about him, because she obviously knows something's up with the whole Bobby Dean death and everything, so she kind of wants to get to the bottom of it, and I don't blame her. But she did end up seeing something pretty important, so we'll definitely see more of that, and we'll see if she kind of questions Marty later on. So then, this was a really, really good scene, really well done. Probably my favorite scene of the episode, where Jonah hears a man walking in the house upstairs. He's named Ashy, and he's kind of taking pictures of the place, kind of getting some background for the Snells. He works for them. But Jonah ends up getting this gun that he hid away and he buried in the forest there a little bit earlier, and is about to shoot at him because he sees a shadow there at the stairs. And, it's just a really suspenseful scene, kind of a lot of leading up, the music's building, everything's building, and then another disappointment for me. Honestly, I mean, this scene, yeah, it was good, but I would have loved to see Jonah actually do something to shoot him, or maybe, hit him or something, and be the hero in this, because he just learned how to shoot the gun and everything. It was kind of all building up to this, and then we just get let down. So he ends up that he's about to shoot him. It's really tense, and then the horn blows from outside. Marty kind of beeps the horn, and the guy, is just let free. Jonah goes downstairs, hides the gun again, and just leaves with Marty in the car. Like, in this scenario, does Jonah not tell Marty, there's a guy in the house looking around, and I was pretty worried about it. Maybe then, yes, he has to bring up the whole gun thing, and obviously he doesn't want Marty to find that out, or Buddy, that he stole his gun. But, really, you don't bring that up and say, Dad, there's a guy in the house. No, he just leaves with Marty, everything's fine, doesn't tell him, and the Ashy guy is just safe, and he just leaves. So, really frustrating scene there for me, personally. But, obviously, we'll see more of this Ashy guy, and we do later. So, then we find out that the Snells, this is a big twist, sort of, are selling drugs in the pastor's Bibles at the service without him knowing. And so the pastor trusts Ashy, who's the guy earlier. And yeah, so that scene from the beginning comes back where he's kind of laying in the water there, and his wife says Ashy's here to fix the boat or whatever. So it's kind of a big time-lapse episode where they started the beginning, they did the whole episode, and then they came back to it. So that was the one huge thing about this episode that I loved, the way they did that. It was really cool. I think that, the intro as well was kind of cool to build on his character. But yeah, so just really cool the way they did that, kind of a time lapse there. So yeah, we find out that these drugs are being sold, and that Jacob Snell is kind of behind all of it, and the pastor doesn't even know. So then Ashy, at the very end there, views Marty and Wendy kind of standing up there on the boat, and they're introduced to the congregation, and the pastor says they're building the new church for them, and pretty funny because Ashy's face is pretty dumbfounded. He can't hardly believe it that, these guys have just, bought this church for them, and they're already involved in this congregation selling drugs in it. So obviously it's going to be a big impact on them. So that was an interesting scene. And of course, Marty and Wendy have no idea about any of it. So definitely leading to some big things next episode. So for this episode, for my rating, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5 even. Like I said, I think this was kind of, a lot of stuff was all over the place in my opinion. I think they could have, definitely done it a little bit better, followed the storylines a little bit more, maybe even split this into 2, like I said before. Maybe that would have been better, I don't know. But I thought it was a really well done episode still, even though it was kind of, a lot of stuff was going on at once. I think it was still well done. The way they started the introduction, the way they kind of found that scene again with the pastor at the very end, and then we kind of figured it out that it all connected back, which was very interesting. I just felt like some of the parts, weren't really relevant, and they didn't really need to be in there, with the Josh Silverberg coming, and the whole thing with the FBI agent is kind of weird right now. But I think that storyline is going to come out later on for sure. But I think for now, right now, it just doesn't make much sense to us about what his intentions are of getting together with Russ Langmore now. It's really weird. But anyways, we'll see where that goes. And the whole scene with Jonah hearing the guy upstairs, that really frustrated me too. And I feel like he really, something could have happened there where he was the hero, and that was that. But it's only episode 5, right? So not much stuff can happen so far. And officially we are halfway after this episode, so very kind of cool and upsetting as well, because there's only 10 episodes in this, so we only have 5 left. But anyways, I've been taking my time with this series as well. Not that I haven't enjoyed it, just been taking my time, haven't really been binge watching or anything like that. It's because for me it's not that interesting, because I've seen Breaking Bad. I hate to compare it to that because there's a lot of differences, but it's sort of based around the same thing. And I still really like the idea though. So favorite character for this one is Marty Byrde. I mean, he's probably gonna be my favorite character for every one of these episodes. Now I was thinking about Jacob Snell this episode just because we got to learn a little bit more about him, but the screen time for him was not great this episode. I mean, I think we only saw him for a few minutes out of the 60, or 56 or whatever it is. So anyways, definitely Marty again, Jason Bateman. I say this now every episode, but he's doing a great job, amazing job. And just the way his character is evolving in this, we're kind of, seeing what he likes about the money laundering, why he does it, why he kind of crosses the line here and whatever. So yeah, definitely a really interesting character. One of the best characters in a TV show I've seen in a while. I do have to say that because it's the truth. I mean, it's a really great character, really dynamic, and the whole thing with Wendy is just hilarious. A lot of the stuff he says, and the way that they're still together after all this has happened. They're kind of just for the publicity or for the optics of it, they're kind of sticking together. So a lot of funny things happen there, and yeah, so. Definitely excited for the next episode of this one. I think that Jacob Snell is going to play a big part in this season. I think, some big things are going to go down. And I think eventually Marty might end up working for him in a way or something like that. Maybe Del takes Jacob out. I'm not sure. Those are kind of my predictions, floating around in my head. But yeah, that is going to just about do it for this review. Yeah, so I'll see you next time for Ozark, Season 1, Episode 6. Later.
Yeah, flexing in my Nikes. I've been running all day in my Nikes. Trying to get it while I got it, while the getting's good. I'ma go get her, I'ma get it like a